Imagine a soldier who, for 3 years, has no real name. Not a code name, a birth certificate, a childhood, a social security number, all of it invented from scratch by a government office that doesn't officially exist. Now imagine that every fingerprint scanner, every airport camera, every border database on the planet has been quietly altered to agree with the lie. It sounds like a Cold War thriller. It sounds like the kind of gadget-heavy invisibility tech the movies love. Cloaking suits, thermal blankets, some kind of digital disappearing act. But it is a lie, or more precisely, it's the wrong lie. The Pentagon does not need a cloaking device to make an operator disappear for 3 years, because there is something far more effective, far more bureaucratic, and far more brutal than any piece of hardware. It deletes the person underneath the uniform and builds a new one from the ground up. This is the hidden machinery behind Ghost Mode, the multi-year, off-the-books deployments where an operator has to vanish not just from an enemy, but from every database, camera, and algorithm on Earth. How does a human being stay invisible for 3 straight years, in an age where a fitness watch can give away the location of a military base? The answer has nothing to do with secret technology. It has everything to do with a program most Americans have never heard of. The Secret Army. Here is the data point that should recalibrate what you think Special Forces actually means. Investigations into the US military uncovered a program called Signature Reduction, and the number attached to it is almost impossible to believe. Roughly 60,000 people belong to this force, more than 10 times the size of the CIA's entire clandestine service. Over half of them are special operations personnel, working not just in acknowledged war zones, but inside countries where the United States has no business being at all, the kind of assignments that never appear on a casualty report, because officially they never happened. These aren't badge-carrying spies in trench coats. They're operators, cleared for a different kind of war, one measured not in ammunition, but in paperwork. To understand how a man survives 3 years of manufactured invisibility, you have to understand that before he ever boards a plane, an entire second version of him already exists. The man who stopped existing. Every deep cover deployment begins months, sometimes years, before the operator leaves, inside a quiet office run by people who spend their entire careers on a discipline called signature reduction. There are 6 principles drilled into every file: credibility, compatibility, realism, supportability, verity, and compliance. Translation: a fake life has to survive a bored customs officer, a curious neighbor, and an automated facial recognition system, all at the same time. The operator is given a new birthplace, a new childhood, school records that don't exist anywhere except where they're supposed to, a social media history stretching back a decade, with fake friends who post convincingly boring things about him online, real government databases, the ones that verify citizenship and immigration and travel, are quietly rewritten so his fake life doesn't just look real, it is real on paper. To anyone who bothers to check. He doesn't need to remember to lie. The lie has already been filed, cross-referenced, and backdated for him. The Strava problem. This is where the popular myth falls apart. The idea that staying ghost is mostly about the operator's own tradecraft, how he holds a conversation, how he tails a target, how convincingly he wears a disguise. The real threat was never the operator's cover story. It was the phone in his pocket. In 2018, a global heat map published by a popular fitness tracking app accidentally exposed the outlines of classified military bases because enough soldiers had jogged the same perimeter loops wearing the same GPS watches. A multi-year, 6-figure legend can survive a hostile intelligence service and still get shredded by one soldier posting a smiling gym selfie with the location data quietly baked into the file. That is why Ghost Mode isn't really a skill an operator practices out in the field. It's a set of rules enforced long before he ever leaves, known inside the community as emissions control, or EMCON. No personal phone, no personal accounts logging in from 2 continents at once, no digital thread left connecting the man who used to exist to the one who currently does. The cost of being no one. But erasing a person is never a clean procedure. It comes with a price that shows up quietly, over months, not all at once. Deep cover and low visibility operators can go years, sometimes their entire deployment, without one single conversation in which they're allowed to be themselves. Every call home has to fit a fake job. a fake schedule, a fake reason for being wherever he claims to be. Some are told plainly not to expect any contact at all for long stretches, because contact itself is a signature. Those who study long-term undercover personnel describe a specific, quiet erosion, the moment the lie stops feeling like something you're telling and starts feeling like simply where you live. Some operators describe a strange kind of relief the day they stop performing the cover altogether, because by then, it has genuinely become easier than remembering the truth. If this is the first time you've heard how deep this program actually runs, hit subscribe, because the part almost nobody talks about isn't the mission itself. It's what happens the day it ends. The recall. The hardest thing a ghost mode operator ever does isn't staying hidden. It's coming back. Nobody warns him about this part because there's nothing tactical about it. There's no checklist, no rehearsal, no cadre standing over his shoulder grading the transition. For 3 years, an entire government infrastructure existed solely to keep one fake identity alive. 6-figure contracts, rewritten databases, a legend built with more care than most people put into their actual lives. And then, almost overnight, that infrastructure simply switches off, and the man who used it is handed back his real name like a coat he supposedly just took off. Except it isn't a coat. A coat can be taken off in one motion. This can't. The first night home. The recovery doesn't start with a parade or a debrief room. It starts somewhere much smaller. The first night he sleeps in a bed that is, on paper, actually his. For 3 years, sleep was operational. He learned to wake up already oriented. Which name, which job, which city, which excuse for the bruise on his forearm. That skill doesn't have an off switch. Operators returning from long-duration, low-visibility work describe lying in their own bedroom, in their own house, running the same 3-second mental check they ran every morning in country. Who am I today? For a few seconds, some nights, the honest answer doesn't come easily. Not because he's forgotten his real name, because for 3 years, his real name wasn't the one that kept him alive, and some part of his nervous system hasn't been told the emergency is over. Researchers who study long-term undercover personnel have a clinical name for pieces of this. Depersonalization, derealization, the sensation of watching your own life happen from a slight distance, like the version of you narrating events isn't fully attached to the version living them. It isn't dramatic. It's quieter than that, a low hum underneath ordinary moments, like making coffee in a kitchen that is legally his, but doesn't yet feel like it belongs to him. The slow unbuilding. While the man is relearning how to be himself somewhere else, a completely different process is happening to the identity he's leaving behind. A legend built over years doesn't just get abandoned. It has to be unwound with the same precision it was built. Bank accounts tied to the fake name are closed without triggering a flag. Utility bills stop, gradually, in a way that looks like a man simply moving away rather than a man ceasing to exist. Fabricated employers, the ones who supposedly signed his paychecks for 3 years, quietly dissolve, their web presence taken down on a schedule designed to look like an unremarkable small business closing, not like a government prop being struck from a set. Somewhere, a landlord who thought he rented an apartment to a mid-level logistics consultant is simply told, eventually, that the tenant moved on. A gym regular who spotted him on bench presses twice a week for 2 years never gets an explanation for why his workout partner stopped showing up. A woman who believed she was in an actual relationship with an actual man for the better part of 3 years is never told any version of the truth because the truth was never hers to have. She just watched somebody she loved disappear with no funeral, no goodbye, no evidence that anything real had ever been there at all. That absence doesn't only belong to her, he carries it too, quietly, for the rest of his life, in the specific shape of a person he can never explain and was never allowed to keep. The people who never knew. This is the part of ghost mode nobody puts in the recruiting brochure, the fact that reintegration isn't something that only happens to the operator. It happens invisibly to everyone who loved a version of him that was never real in the first place. His actual family, the real one waiting at home, faces a stranger version of the same problem in reverse. They spent 3 years loving a man they couldn't call, couldn't locate, couldn't even confirm was alive some months, because confirmation itself would have been a signature. A wife runs a household alone. A father misses a school play, a first heartbeat on an ultrasound, 3 consecutive birthdays, and comes home to a 12-year-old who has quietly, understandably, stopped organizing her life around waiting for him. He doesn't get to explain where he was. Officially, he was never anywhere at all. So the reunion that's supposed to feel like relief instead comes loaded with an unspoken, impossible question sitting in the room. How do you rebuild trust with someone using only the fraction of the truth you're legally allowed to say out loud? The quiet relapse. Clinicians who study this population describe something almost nobody expects: the fact that the emotional crisis doesn't usually hit during the deployment. It hits afterward, in the stretch most people assume should be the easy part. Research on long-term undercover personnel finds that most operators experience an intense wave of psychological distress, specifically in the weeks after an assignment ends, not during it, and that for a majority, the acute symptoms fade within roughly 6 months if the reintegration is handled properly, with structured decompression and psychological support built into the return. But a meaningful minority don't recover that cleanly. Some develop a quiet craving for recognition of a version of themselves nobody is allowed to acknowledge existed: the man who ran an entire fabricated life successfully for 3 years, invisibly, and will never get so much as a mention for it. Others notice a strange muscle memory that doesn't fade, reflexively slipping into a cover story in casual conversation with someone they have no reason to lie to anymore, and catching themselves mid-sentence, unsure for a second why the lie came so naturally. There's an almost absurd detail buried in the research that says more than any statistic could. Operators coming off long, sedentary undercover assignments, months of desk work, surveillance vans, waiting, often come home carrying extra weight from years of stress and stillness. And one of the first things many of them do, without being told to, is start training again. Not for a mission, just to feel in a body that's been someone else's for 3 years, like it's finally allowed to be theirs. The reframe. We like to imagine special forces vanishing into hostile territory using gadgets, cloaking devices, disguises, movie-grade tradecraft, a man who slips out of one identity and into another as easily as changing a jacket. But the real machinery of ghost mode was never in the disappearing. Anyone can vanish for a while. The real machinery, the expensive, brutal, quietly heroic part, is in what it costs to come back. A legend that took years to build has to be dismantled by hand. One file, one fake friendship, one abandoned bank account at a time, while the man underneath it relearns, slowly and without a manual, how to answer to his own name again. The callback visual. So the next time you picture a special operator disappearing into enemy territory, don't picture the moment he vanishes. Picture the moment, 3 years later, when he has to stop being gone. He was never hiding from the enemy. He was already erased and rebuilt, piece by piece, for 3 straight years. And now, standing in his own hallway, in his own life, he has to do the hardest version of that same work one final time. Not disappearing, just learning, slowly, how to exist again as the one person the entire operation was never designed to protect.